Hello friends. There is a saying that God helps those who help themselves. And like politicians who just before the elections turn faithful believers, many students also become believers just before important examinations like CAT. But how can you help God to help you? How can you help yourself? So with the help of some questions in the Quant section of slot 2 of CAT 18, we will see how you could have helped yourself. What could have been some efficient ways of solving these problems. So we'll start with this problem on time and distance, and there are two points A and B, 350 kilometers apart, and two cars start from A and B. They move towards each other and they move in the same direction in the second case. Now they are asking what is the difference in their speeds. Now where have you encountered this kind of phrase? When will you be able to tell what is the difference in their speeds? Only when they are moving in the same direction. So all that you need to know is when they move towards east, they meet in 7 hours. So one car overtakes the other car. The distance between these 2 points is 350 kilometers, and the overtaking was done in 7 hours. So the difference between the speeds is absolutely the most trivial, which is 50 kilometers per hour. That's the answer. So what's the takeaway? That some information may be irrelevant, and you should be able to focus on the most relevant information. This would be, in my opinion, be considered a sitter of slot 2 of CAT 18. Let us look at this question on linear equations from slot 2 of CAT 18. The arithmetic mean of 3 quantities is 80, and 5 quantities, 5 variables, x, y, z, u, v is 75. U has been defined in terms of x and y, v has been defined in terms of y and z, and they are asking what's the minimum possible value of x given that x is greater than or equal to z. The solution of this question on linear equations is also very linear. All you have to remember is when somebody gives you the mean of several variables, they also tell you the total of those variables. So the total of x, y and z, x plus y plus z is nothing but 3, because there are 3 variables, times 80, which is 240. And the total of 5 variables, x, y, z, u, v, is going to be 5 times 75, or 375. Immediately you notice that the difference between these two last equations, equation 2 and equation 3, is this group u plus v. So we know the value of u plus v, which is 135. But u plus v has already been defined in the question as this group. So rewriting that, we get x divided by 2 plus y plus z divided by 2 is equal to 135. Simplifying that, because we generally stay away from fractions, we get x plus 2y plus z equal to 270. However, we notice that x plus y plus z is 240. So what does that give you? It gives you the value of y. And once you know the value of y, you know x plus z. Now, given that x is greater than or equal to z, what is the minimum possible value of x? Do you realize that the value of x will be minimum when x is equal to z? And so, if x is equal to z, the value of x will turn out to be 210 divided by 2, or 105. This was a theta question, but not too difficult. So what is the takeaway from this question? To remember, it is possible to calculate the total given the average of the group, and then Just keeping on simplifying things, keeping them simple, and finally coming to the answer without too much trouble. Now a question on geometry from slot 2. Area of a rectangle and the square of its perimeter and the ratio, and what is the ratio of the shorter and the longer sides of this rectangle. Options are given. So you can draw a small diagram and sort of clarify things in your mind. B the breadth and L the length of the rectangle. B is usually the smaller side and L the longer. So the area would be L times B and the perimeter would be, please remember, 2 times the sum of L and B. So they are saying that this ratio LB over the square of the perimeter 2 times L plus B whole squared is 1 over 25. They are asking us what is the ratio B to L. Options are given, so why do we struggle with equations? Let us use the options. The simplest option seems to be 1 over 3. So let's try that. If we put B is equal to 1 and L equal to 3, this is what will happen. The numerator would be 1 times 3 and the denominator 2 times 1 plus 3 whole bracket squared. If we calculate that, which is very simple, it will be 3 over 64. Is it equal to 1 over 25? No, it is not. So this is not the correct option. The next simplest seems to be 1 by 4. So what happens when B is 1 and L is 4? This is what happens. You get 1 times 4 divided by 2 times 1 plus 4 whole bracket squared. And what is that? That is 4 over 100. Is it 1 by 25? Yes, indeed. This is it. The answer is option 2. So what's the takeaway from a simple problem like this? Nothing but, given the options and the question is direct, do some work on the problem, but then do not solve it, please. Use the options, use the options, use the options. Another question on geometry from slot 2. A parallelogram whose area is 48. The length of one of the sides is 8 centimeters and the length of the other side is unknown. They call it S, and now they're given the options about S. What can be said about the value of S? Which one of them is necessarily true? It must always be true. This is what it means. So what could be the solution of something like this? You draw a diagram, you have this parallelogram, and you mark the sides given. CD is 8 and AD is S, and the area is 48. Very simple in terms of area of the parallelogram. Area is nothing but base times height. And so if we write that, we get the value of the height of this parallelogram, which is equal to 6 centimeters. Now, this height and this height of this triangle, whatever it, suppose we call it X, A, X and D is nothing but the same as H, which is 6 centimeters. All these are right angle triangles because these are all perpendiculars to the base, and therefore AXD is a right angle triangle. In the right angle triangle, AD, which is the hypotenuse, is always going to be greater than the shorter side, which is 6. It will be equal to 6 if this parallelogram is a rectangle, and so AD is greater than or equal to H, greater than or equal to 6, and that's the answer. So what is the takeaway from a sitter like this? Should be able to draw a neat diagram, and always in the geometry section of CAT or practically any other entrance examination, look for special triangles. The right angle triangles, the equilateral triangles, isosceles triangles, Pythagorean triangles, and you will get your answer very, very quickly. Another problem in geometry, slot 2, CAT 18. Triangle ABC with a circle or drawn on diameter BC, intersecting AB and AC at points P, Q. Let us begin by drawing the diagram. It will look something like this. Triangle ABC, circle drawn on the side BC as the diameter, intersects AB and AC at points PQ, and the lengths are given. 30 for AB, so this is AB. 25 for AC. There are two more lines here. The line CP is of length 20, and the line in red BQ, length of which is asked. And this is a theta problem. There are no options. Now what I do personally whenever I see a semicircle, because BC is the diameter and point P is on the circumference of the semicircle, I, without thinking, I mark this as right angle. BPC is 90 degrees, and therefore so is APC. Point Q also is on the semicircle, and therefore BQC is 90 degrees, and so is AQB. Now, do you realize that there are similar triangles in the figure? For example, if you look at ABQ, it's a right angle triangle, and there is another right angle triangle which is ACP. Both are right angle, both share another angle A, and therefore they are similar to each other. If they are similar, by employing the similarity principle, the ratio of the corresponding sides is the same. What does that mean? AB, which is the hypotenuse of the triangle AQB, and BQ is the side which is opposite angle A in the same triangle, must be, that same ratio must be applicable to the triangle ACP, where AC, both AB and AC are hypotenuses, please remember, and BQ and CP are sides which are opposite angle A. So ratio of the corresponding sides is the same. Now, out of these four quantities, we know three numbers: 30 for AB, 25 for AC, and 20 for CP. How difficult is it then to calculate BQ? BQ will come out as 24. It's a theta question, so simple. If you look for right angle triangles, if you look for similar triangles, and you're done within 1 or 1.5 minutes. So what's the learning? Draw a neat diagram, of course. Geometry is becoming a section where CAT does not give you any figures whatsoever. So draw a neat diagram. Identify special triangles, right angle triangles, equilateral triangles, Pythagorean triangles, and look for similarity, and you're done. Now friends, let us look at this problem, which is a combination of a few topics in Quant in slot 2. Triangle ABC has been given, whose area is 32 square units, and they have said that the side BC of length 80 units lies on line x equal to 4. As usual, we'll start by drawing a diagram. These are the options given, by the way. And so this is the coordinate plane. The line x equal to 4 is a vertical line passing through 4, 0, shown as this. And then BC has been marked arbitrarily anywhere on this line of 8 units. They are asking us what is the shortest possible distance between the vertex A and the origin, which is 0, 0. So let us see how we can think about this. If area of the triangle is 32 square units, and if we take BC as the base, then we can calculate the altitude. The altitude will come out to be 8 units. If we take BC as the base, the altitude is nothing but the vertical distance, or let us say the perpendicular distance between point A and BC. So if vertex A is on the right hand side of BC, then vertex A will now be on this line, where the line is x equal to 12, and the shortest distance between this line and the origin is going to be from this point, which will be 12 units. But to minimize the distance between vertex A and origin, we can also think of vertex A being on the left hand side of the base BC, and in that case it will lie on this line x equal to -4, and the shortest distance between the origin and any point on this line x equal to 4 will be 4 units as shown, and this, in fact, what is shown here would be the vertex A. So this is now shown here as this solid triangle, and so the answer is 4 units, option 2. What's the learning? Draw a neat diagram, keeping it simple, don't worry about any formulae. and you will get the answer. This was a problem on functions and graphs in slot 2 of CAT 18. Many people are scared of such problems, but let us see how we can work with the information given and come to an answer fairly quickly. You must understand the definition of the function first. So let us try to understand and draw something. F of x is minimum of 5x, comma 52 minus 2x squared. So what is 52 minus 2x squared? It is this parabola which starts on the y-axis at 52. This will be 52. And it is opening downwards because this sign is negative. So this parabola is 52 minus 2x squared. What about this 5x? 5x is nothing but a line passing through the origin. There is no intercept. So these are the two individual curves. Now what is the meaning of f of x is the minimum of these two curves? It means that if I were to take a value of x somewhere here and calculate or find out where is it on this curve and where is it on this curve, I will select the minimum, and therefore this will be the value of f of x for this value of x. What it means is f of x looks something like this bold red line. Now they are asking what is the maximum possible value of x. The maximum possible value of x is definitely at this intersection. So we must calculate what is the value of x and therefore what is the value of f of x. Since these two curves are intersecting at that point, the value of 5x and 52 minus 2x squared must be equal. Rearranging it, we get 2x squared plus 5x minus 52 equal to 0. Can you factorize this quadratic? If you cannot, please use the quadratic formula which you can never forget, and you will get this as the factorization and these as the roots of this quadratic. X can be either negative 13 over 2 or 4, but x is a positive real number and therefore negative 13 by 2 would be eliminated. X must be 4. If x is 4, 5x is 20, and that's the answer. This was a theta question and not too difficult even on functions and graphs. So what is the takeaway? Draw a neat diagram, understand the definition of this function, and finally solve a quadratic in a confident manner. Let us look at this question on numbers. The smallest integer n, for which 4 to the power n is greater than 17 to the power 19. This smallest integer n is closest to which one of these options? Now if you look at these numbers, 4 to the power n and 17 to the power 19, it's not possible to calculate n. And so, that being an impossible thing, let us try to estimate n. Now do you realize that the square of 4 is very close to 17? Square of 4 is 16. And do you realize that 16 to the power 19, because 19 is there in this question as power of 17, 16 to the power 19 is nothing but 4 to the power 38. What can we say about these two numbers, 16 to the power 19 and 17 to the power 19? Obviously, 16 to the power 19 is less than 17 to the power 19. It means that n, this n must be greater than 38. And there's only one option which is greater than 38, option number 3. So what do we learn from this question? Remembering your perfect squares, 4 square is 16, 16 was very close to 17, and focusing on the question. All they were asking was which of these options is closest to n. They never really asked for what is the value of n, which would have been an impossible task. This question from slot 2 was one of the lengthy questions. There are several products and they are asking what is the sum of these products. 7 times 11, 11 times 15, etc. all the way to 95 times 99, and options were given. Options, if you notice, are very close to each other. 80,751, 773 and 73707. So if you make a small mistake in calculation, you are done, in spite of spending so much time. What could you have done for a problem like this? I think no matter what you do, the method is going to be slightly lengthy, but one of the most efficient ways of doing this would have been to look at the last digit of each of these products. 7 times 11, the last digit is 7. 11 times 15, the second term, last digit is 5. Last digit of 15 times 19 is 5. 19 times 23 is 7. Please understand, you don't have to calculate the product. All you have to do for last digit is consider the last digit of this number and the last digit of this number and the last digit of the product, which is 7. And the last digit of 23 by 27 is 1. So the sum of these last digits would have given you a last digit for that particular partial sum as 5. Now, the pattern repeats because now instead of 7 times 11, it is 27 times 31. The last digits of the first number and the second number remain as 7 and 1. And therefore, this pattern of 5 products at a time, giving you a sum of the last digit as 5, will keep on repeating. How many times will it repeat? 7 times 11 is 27 times 31, then 47 times 51, then 67 times 71, and the last group will end with 83 times 87. So we have these groups, but we haven't reached 95 times 99. So we have to now calculate the last digit of these 3 remaining products. So 87 times 91 is 7, 91 times 95 is 5, and 95 times 99 is 5. Finally, what do we have? The last digit of all these products when added together would be 5 plus 5, 4 times 5, I'm sorry, plus 7 plus 5 plus 5. What's the last digit of this sum? Very simple. It will be 7, and therefore the answer option, which has 7 as the last digit, must be the correct one, option 4. What's the takeaway? Notice the pattern, develop a line of thinking, and be patient with it. Some questions are going to be lengthy, and not all of them will have a very elegant shortcut that can give you an answer in half a minute. This question from slot 2 of CAT 18 was a particularly challenging one. 2 sets are given. The definition of the elements in these 2 sets are given. And the 4 options are in terms of statements. So that's why this becomes a challenging question. Let us examine these 2 sets. The definition of the element in set A is slightly complicated. So let us leave that for the beginning. Let us look at set B, where the definition of the element is a fairly simple one. And it seems obvious that set B contains all the multiples of 35 starting from 0, 0, 35, 70, 105, etc. So let us then look at set B. The element of set A is this. Obviously, this middle term, negative 35 times n, is divisible by 35. So what about the other 2 terms, 6 to the power 2n minus 1? Do you realize that this term, 6 to the power 2n, is a square, because 2n will always be an even number. If it's a square, then this is a difference of 2 squares, and they will have factors. So 6 to the power n minus 1 and 6 to the power n plus 1 are the factors of 6 to the power 2n minus 1. What about each one of these? What can we say about 6 to the power n minus 1? Does it look like x to the power n minus y to the power n? It does. And it has a factor x minus y, or this will have a factor of 6 minus 1, 5, and the second term will have a factor 6 plus 1, which is 7. If these 2 are factors of 6 to the power 2n minus 1, then because it's a product, 6 to the power 2n minus 1 will be divisible by 5 as well as 7 and therefore divisible by 35. It means that this entire expression, which is the definition of the element in set A, is divisible by 35. So set A also contains multiples of 35, but it will not contain all the multiples of 35. Set B, on the other hand, contains all the multiples of 35. Set A contains some multiples of 35. Now let us go and look at the options. Every member of B is in A. That is not possible. Neither every member of A is in B, but every member of A will be in B, so that's not gone. That's gone. Every member of A is in B, so that's correct. Fourth, at least one member of A is not in B. That's also not correct. So we have arrived at the right option, option number 3. So what do we learn from this? Noticing the obvious, which means the definition of the elements in set A and set B being very simple compared to set A. Then set A, the definition of the element could be factorized, and that's an important skill in these exams. Can you factorize expressions? And then after doing some work on these two definitions, can you work with the options and then select the right option? That is going to be the trick. Not solving the question completely, but doing some work and then going to the options if there are options and selecting the right one. Another question from slot 2 based on quadratic equations was this one, in my opinion. A and B are integers and two quadratic inequalities are given. First one involves A and the second one involves B. And then they are asking us what is the largest possible value of 2A minus 6B. Again, there are no options, so it's a theta question. Again, making it slightly more difficult. If you want to maximize this expression 2A minus 6B, then the first term 2A should be maximized and 6B should be minimized. Let us keep that in mind as we work. Now let us work with the first quadratic. Remember, the square of a real number is always greater than or equal to 0. Here we are dealing with an expression which is always greater than 0. First, let us analyze what will happen when we complete the square. I take the factor 2 outside, and what remains is x squared minus a by 2 times x plus 1 greater than 0. I can complete the square by taking x a by 2 as equal to 2. Then the left hand side will become x squared minus 2x plus 1, and I know that this can be greater than or equal to 0. That means a by 2 is equal to 2 for this expression to be greater than or equal to 0. But we are not interested in the equal to part, and therefore a by 2 cannot be 2 or a cannot be 4. So a, the highest value of a that we can get is 3. If we similarly look at the second expression, we want b to be minimized, so b should be negative. I can complete this square by looking at 8 as a square of 2 root 2, and this would be greater than or equal to 0. Expansion of that would give me x squared plus 4 root 2 plus x plus 8. Now that means b is equal to negative 4 root 2. But we want b to be maximum negative value. So b must be greater than negative 5.6. Maximum value of b can be only negative 5. And the expression then 2a minus 6b is 2 times 3 minus 6 times minus 5, 36. So what's the learning from this? Always remember that squares of real numbers are greater than or equal to 0. Completion of squares is an important skill, so practice that. And be watchful. In what sense? The first expression involving a only had greater than, there was no equal to, and so a had to be changed from 4 to 3. In the second case, b was negative, and so b had to be greater than negative 5.6. Now that is not negative 6, but it is negative 5. And such things will make you a champion of Quant section. I hope this discussion was useful to you. I hope going forward this discussion will help you in all your entrance examinations. If you like this video, please share it with your friends and do subscribe to this channel, because there will be more such videos on other sections of CAT on this channel. Thank you very much. All the best.